Hi Stampers, this is Sally Poole, independent demonstrator with Stampin Up. Thanks for checking out my very first video. I'm so excited to show you this cute card. I used the new Christmas Scottie stamp set and the coordinating Scottie dog punch from the mini catalog July through December 2022. You'll be able to get these items starting on July 1st. I'll give you the measurements as we go along, but I do have a PDF with the instructions and measurements over on my blog at getcraftywithsally.com. Let's get started. First, I'm going to stamp the Scottie dog and punch the image out. So for this, I'm going to use my Stamparatus. I do have my foam piece in because we are using a photopolymer stamp. So I'm just going to put in a little piece of basic white cardstock. I'll lay my stamp down, pick it up with the Stamparatus, ink it up, and I just re-inked this ink pad, so hopefully it's not awful. A little bit of white spots, so we'll give it another little bit of ink. Okay, that looks pretty good. Close up my ink and set this aside. So a lot of times if you cut your paper too small before you stamp your image on it, it's hard to get a hold of it, to cut it straight in here. So I'm going to show you a little trick that I use. I'm going to create a little handle. So if you just cut off a little piece of scrap paper, put some tape on there and stick the scrap paper on there. You can hold it with the little handle and punch it out perfectly. Next, we're going to cut the sentiment out using a die from the Stylish Shapes die set. I have trouble saying that. And I'm going to be using this larger die of the two smaller flag dies. I'm going to line up the left side, put a small piece of tape on it, and you can see that my sentiment is actually larger than this die. So we're not going to run it all the way through. I'm using plate 1 and plate 2. Then I'm going to put my paper and my die on. Put down a second plate 2. And I'm not going to run this all the way through, otherwise it would cut my sentiment off. So we'll run it through a good ways and then back it out. Then we're going to take the same die, place it at the end of our sentiment, and you can feel it catch in those little grooves that you've already cut. Put my tape back on. Bring my machine back in, make my same sandwich. I'm going to run it through again, not all the way. Back it out. And there we've got it cut so it'll match the sentiment. I do this a lot with the rectangle stitched set. So it's just a handy little tip to keep in mind when you're cutting sentiments out and you think you don't have a die that fits. Okay, so we've got our Scottie dog and our sentiment. So let's put the card together. Oh, one more thing. If you do use this set, you can use this Merry Christmas stamp and it fits right in there. You don't need to do any messing with that one. So it's actually easier. So here's the pieces that we're going to use. The card base is 5.5 inches by 7 inches, scored at 3.5 inches in cherry cobbler. The inside piece is 3.25 by 5.25 basic white. For the front of the card, I have basic black, 3.25 by 5.25. And then over that goes a piece of 3.125 by 5.125 designer series paper, and I chose this piece of poinsettia paper from the new Boughs of Holly DSP pack. We're also going to cut 2 squares. The smaller one is 2 3/8 inches square. The larger one is 2 3/4 inches square. But what I used was the dies from the Stylish Shapes dies set again. I used the largest one for the black piece, the next largest one for the white piece. Cuts them out perfectly, and then they have that nice stitched edge. So we also have a small piece of cherry cobbler paper in, you're going to cut it at 5.125 by 1/2 inch. And then we have our Scottie dog and our sentiment. So let's put this together. First, I'm going to adhere the DSP to the basic black piece. And I do get crazy with my tape. I have 2 dogs asleep at my feet, and they're both snoring like freight trains. I don't know if you can hear them or not. Hopefully the microphone isn't picking them up. So now we're going to adhere the black piece to the card base. And then I'm going to adhere the basic white piece to the inside. If you want to stamp an image on this, you could, and I usually stamp it before I put it in here in case the image that I want to use is something that I want to stamp off of the corner. You wouldn't want to do that over the top of your cherry cobbler. Well, I guess you could, but it would be okay either way. So now let's put our squares together, and for this I'm going to use liquid glue. That gives me a little more time to play with it and slide it into place. If I put tape on it, I'd probably only have one shot at it, and I wouldn't make it. Okay, so you need to remember when you are putting the piece with the squares on the card base, that it can't be any wider than 4¼ inches or it won't fit in your envelope. So I like to glue this on with the envelope underneath it so I can tell exactly where it needs to be. And you don't want to put glue on this upper third part because there's nothing behind it. You just want to put glue or tape on the bottom. And then try to center this as evenly as you can. Next, we're going to pop the Scottie dog up on some dimensionals. You could also, instead of stamping the Scottie dog, you could punch it out in designer series paper, Christmas paper, or plaid would even be really cute with the Scottie dog. And then you could put some other kind of sentiment on it and make it something other than a Christmas card. Next, we will put our strip of cherry cobbler on. And I'm gonna line my card up on my graph paper, which will hopefully, good grief, help me to get this a little straighter. Okay, that looks good. And then I'll attach my sentiment with just some tape. I also added a retired adhesive back snowflake to my sentiment. I just thought it added a little cuteness to this card. And I don't know if you noticed or not, but on the original card, the little Scottie dog has a green bow. I spent a good half an hour looking for that roll of ribbon and could not find it. So I found this that matched the cherry cobbler. This is a 1/8 inch ribbon. I'm going to adhere it with a little bit of glue. You could also just use a glue dot. Can't tell what's the front or the back of this bow. Oop. Take a little bit of that glue off. You can also use the bow from the punch, but it was a little big for my liking, so I decided to go with the ribbon. Oh. And I usually set an acrylic block on things that I glue and let it sit for a while, but I think this should be okay. So now let's decorate our envelope. Hopefully you can see this envelope on this white graph paper. So I'm going to put some glue on the envelope flap. And I've cut a piece of Designer Series paper from the same pack, and it is cut at 6 by 2.5 inches. And I'm just going to slide it on here up to the envelope fold. Give it a press for a minute. And then I'm going to cut it, which could be like paint drying. And I don't know why, but when I watch other people do this, I kind of enjoy it. And to the person that's actually doing it, it seems horrible, like it's taking forever. But I don't mind watching other people do it on their videos, so maybe it'll be okay. Okay, so that's it. There's the Christmas Scottie card with the matching envelope. I hope you like it, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Do something nice and send someone a card. Bye for now.